Welcome back to the We Are Here podcast. I'm Paul.
And I'm Tony.
And today we're joined by Dr. Mark Wargo. Dr. Wargo is a family medicine doctor here in Streator, and he's affiliated with OSF, with the Center for Health here in Streator, Illinois. He's a Streator native and had a lot of great insights on just kind of wellness in a community.
It's been really interesting talking to him, someone who has such a keen insight into the wellness of this particular community and at large. I really enjoy this. I didn't know Dr. Wargo, and so getting to know him and talk to him was a real treat. I'm sure you guys will enjoy it too, so enjoy this podcast.
Welcome back to the We Are Here podcast, and we're here today with Dr. Mark Wargo. Dr. Wargo, Mark, thank you so much for joining us. It's so good to have you here with us as our guest today.
Yeah, thank you.
We are looking forward to hearing your story, and you are a Streator native, born and raised. We were just talking a little bit about that. And you are a family medicine doctor in Streator, affiliated with OSF, and also... like I said, Streator native, someone who's practiced here for many, many years, for more than 20 years. Do you care to share exactly how long, or does that date you too much?
I started August 2nd of 1999.
Very good, very good. Well, we're glad to have you as a part of our community and glad to have you here on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
Today. Tell us a little about your story, your connection with Streator, growing up, born and raised here. What did that look like? What was your favorite part of growing up here in Streator?
Oh, I think a couple things. I mean, I lived on, grew up on Sharon Road. We had enough kids around that we could have played 11-on-11 football.
Nice.
Roughly close to the same age, and so a lot of memories of that. High school was a lot of fun, And that's what got me into this, I guess. I was initially wanted to go into astronomy.
Oh, okay.
And probably Carl Sagan and cosmos.
Yeah.
And played sports. That was a huge part of growing up. And I wound up breaking my knee when I was going into my freshman year of high school. And played through football season, didn't know it. Didn't really find out till basketball season. And then... had to sit out for a year because of the fracture and wanting to let everything heal. Well, in the meantime, I got involved with athletic training with Jim Warfield, friend of mine, and Dr. Schiffbauer, who was here at the time. Dr. Gottemoller was my doctor, and then Mark Miller, who was head of physical therapy at the hospital at the time, really helped out a lot with the sports programs at the high school. Stayed involved in that, wound up, unfortunately, getting hit by a car when I was going into my junior year, which then kept me out of sports for the rest of high school. I just gave up at that point. But going through that process, that really got me interested in medicine.
Yeah.
And so that pretty much is where it took off from there.
Yeah.
Dr. Ricka, I worked with, he was my partner when we first started, or when I first started back here. And they actually recruited me when I was, I think, a third year of med school, third or fourth year, which was early. But, I decided I wanted to come back and work in Streator. So
yeah,
I'm glad I did.
Come back to your hometown and serve here. And, so that wasn't really your plan before. Or was it just kind of wherever you ended up, going?
Yeah, I really hadn't even thought about it at that point.
Yeah. So just trying to get through school and trying to...
Yeah, because then I had another 3 years of residency after that. And so it was a little early, but, I'm glad I did.
Now, did you do your residency here?
That was in Iowa City.
Okay. All right.
So I did my undergraduate at Butler University and then went to Indiana. I stayed in Indianapolis and then went to the University of Iowa in Iowa City for 3 years.
Been over there many times. We had a family member that was at the VA over in Iowa. So, so had a lot of medical treatment over there. So, very good. Well, just kind of thinking about Streator, what do you love about it today? What have you seen? How have you seen our city grow, change over the years? What's different now that you love maybe even more than what it was when you were growing up here?
I think there's this continued effort to try to improve Streator, and you see it in the downtown, the changes that have gone on from, say, the 90s to now, and this sort of focused renovation and drawing interest back towards the downtown area, because it seemed like with a lot of places, everything moves north. And so, trying to bring everything back. I think, Streator is a very compassionate town. There's a lot of people that are willing to help, and thinking about things like the fundraisers, the benefits, a lot of people I talk to in other towns, that seems very foreign to them.
Yeah.
That there's just not the community engagement.
Yeah, a lot of good volunteerism. We've heard many of our guests talk about, Streator's kind of the place where people are going to pull themselves up by their bootstraps and they're going to get it done, and he'll kind of we'll figure it out. We may not have all the pieces yet, but we'll figure it out,
But there's a willingness to help, and I think that's always been something I've been proud of.
Very good, yeah. Some of those improvements, of course, the medical center, OSF Medical Center, and I mean, obviously some new construction there and some differences there, but it's a beautiful building. We've been there many times with our church doing like meetings and retreats and things like that in the education center. So I'm sure you've seen those changes kind of come and been able to benefit from those in your practice as well. Anything else on that? Maybe some things that people don't see that are benefits in those changes, and some of that new looks, even, it kind of makes it more welcoming, more streamlined to get through to when you see your doctor and things like that. Any thoughts on that? I guess just
when I first started, we were essentially a 2 physician office. We had 1 nurse practitioner at the time. Lots of offices scattered around Streator, and with the transition in 2016 to creating the Center for Health idea, everything pretty much that is healthcare is under one roof, which is nice. For example, if somebody needed to have a test done, x-ray, labs, whatever, it's a whole lot easier going right downstairs and getting it done rather than having to drive down to the hospital, try to find parking and so on. The other thing that's nice and has really improved is just the overall care, in that we have this care team approach. We have lots of other services that can help people, such as a diabetic educator, our care management team, which is a social worker and a nurse that really works with patients, making sure appointments get scheduled, helping out with lots of questions, for example, from the family. Maybe a loved one needs some extra help, and connecting them to those services. This is stuff that we didn't have 26 years ago when I started, and so that's been a huge blessing. I think we don't have the inpatient beds. It's literally the only thing we lack. But we do have, I think, a lot more services that we didn't have 26 years ago, 25 years ago. I think the coordination of care for people is a lot better.
Sure.
So those are things I'm proud of. I think that's made a world of difference.
Very good.
For people.
And if you do need the inpatient beds, Ottawa's available for
Pontiac.
for now. Pontiac. There's things that are close, and
I know I've enjoyed the fact that everything is under one roof, just about, and it's just easy, like you said.
It's very streamlined.
Just easy to go. I don't have to ask my wife, where is this office? Where am I going? She's like, just go to the hospital. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
Look on the directory.
Yeah.
That's right. You'll be fine. You can ask somebody.
Very good. Well, and it's so easy, I think, to miss those conveniences, and that it's like, oh, well, yeah, years ago you go to this office and then you go to this office, and things are spread all over, and it does add to the stress of it and to the time of it and things like that. So when those things are scattered, so I guess things are going to grow, they're going to change, and hopefully for the better. We want to see those things happen for the better in a small town. Let's talk about this idea of wellness, and health. Obviously, you're an expert in that field, and for example, we have kind of in a small town, I think a lot of the issues that happen, have to do with aging. We were talking a little bit before about, diabetes and heart disease, things like that are kind of main issues. But how would you define wellness? When it comes to someone experiencing wellness, good health, how would you define that, first of all, just so we kind of have a baseline of, this is what this looks like. This is what wellness is, and this is the goal when it comes to maybe your practice or your partners in the medical field. What does that look like? How would you define it, first of all?
I guess I'd define it as it's, physical, social, emotional, and mental well-being.
Yeah.
They're all interconnected.
Yeah.
Certainly we all need different parts of that.
Yeah.
Maybe more so than others. But I think if you combine all of those, that would be wellness.
So it's more than just health. As far as your physical health, your mental well-being, right? Your relationships, things like that. And you describe some of those things in that care that's given, dealing with family, helping families understand what's going on as well. Education is part of that, getting education about here's how your diet is affecting your health. Here's how, maybe the stress of life is affecting your health, things like that. And then I guess to kind of broaden that out, the second half of that question is, how is that affecting specifically our community, but how does that affect community as a whole? As a doctor, what do you see the effects of wellness, or maybe the lack thereof, being on a community as a whole? How do you see that affecting us?
Well, I guess I think that when you kind of step back and look at, for example, the schools, or when we do our school physicals, sports physicals, just seeing older people. Prior to coming here, I was over at one of the nursing homes, and when you take a step back and think about, well, how could this improve? We try not to look at it as, well, I'm going to take care of your diabetes, but how else can I improve your life? Or what else am I missing? Or what can be better that maybe helps your diabetes that has nothing to do with diabetes specifically?
Yeah.
How does certain things impact your well-being?
Sure.
If you tell somebody they have diabetes, sometimes that really affects their mental well-being as well, because maybe they had a relative who had significant complications in the past, and that's the first place their mind goes to.
Yeah. So can you give some examples of kind of those other things that affect the health, and what are some examples of those things that come to your mind when you're treating someone with a disease like diabetes or heart disease or anything like that?
Transportation is a huge part of it.
Okay.
I think this is a problem all over, but access to things is difficult for some people. Trying to get to the grocery store, I think sometimes a lot of us take it for granted.
Yeah.
We just think, I'll get in the car and go to the grocery store. But for some people, that's a huge challenge.
Yeah.
Trying to find somebody to get them there.
Yeah, that's one that I probably wouldn't have thought of for sure. If you can't get to the grocery store, you're probably more likely to order something, or even maybe
Sure.
or deliveries and things like that. That affects your finances. That affects a lot of other things. So yeah. Any other thoughts? Any other examples?
Some of it's education on choices. We're creatures of habit. There's certain things I think we can all remember that we ate growing up, that's what we're going to do as adults.
Yeah.
And so, on top of that, it's also trying to find, I guess, reliable information, stuff that's accurate, to try to be able to help with some of this.
Sure. Any places, talk to your doctor. Obviously, I'm sure you recommend that highly, but what other sources of information do you usually recommend to your patients? Is there a place where you go that you prefer to go to kind of get reliable information?
Yeah, I'm lucky I have our diabetic educator as a dietitian, and so I can always ask her things. but it's also just trying to find sort of widely sourced information out there. I mean, different things depending on whether you have heart disease or diabetes or so on. You can find a American Diabetic Association that has information.
Yeah.
Talking to people that have found things that work, the common sense or the sniff test. I mean, if it's, whether you think that seems reasonable to do something.
If it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck, right? Kind of one of those things. Yeah.
I mean, I think there's this sort of I always like the duh diet, that you sort of inherently know things that are good for you.
Sure.
And things that aren't, even though we may still do it.
Yeah.
But
there's a choice there. There's a choice there. Like you said, there's some nostalgia that goes into what we eat at times. So again, kind of just big picture, what do you believe are the most important building blocks for health and wellness? In your opinion, as a doctor, what would you say are the most important building blocks? I won't even put a number on it on how many building blocks, but we may be here for a while, but I don't know.
Oh.
I'll let you limit yourself on that, I guess, if you want to.
I wanted to say I think, some different ideas. For us specifically, I guess just looking at this community and trying to get better.
Sure.
Access to healthcare is big, and whether it's physical or mental, those are things I think probably most communities need to work on.
Especially small towns. Yeah, it's so hard to get access in a small town.
And if you look at like pharmacies, there's a lot of information and education that pharmacists do with patients that helps. The medical equipment companies, Amazon has sort of become the biggest medical supplier in the world, and a lot of people aren't aware that I can get my CPAP stuff off of Amazon, or canes or walkers or wheelchairs or whatever. That for some people that's made a huge difference because of the transportation thing. The Streator Drugs was a huge blessing in the community in that they had a lot of that. They would work with you, help find some of these things. But now, there's nothing really that close that gives you a wide selection that may be able to meet your needs. Access to exercise. The YMCA has done a great job. The OSF has partnered with the YMCA, and I mean, I've seen significant improvement in the YMCA over the years in terms of services they offer, classes they offer, for all ages, yoga class for older folks, and things like that.
Well, the 24-hour wellness center, a gym basically you can get to anytime. That helps with people's busy schedules. And
I have a lot of people that swim that are older. That is a great form of exercise because it's. My knees aren't getting any better.
Yeah.
I mean, it's things like that allows them to continue to be active. Pickleball.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen a resurgence in that over the last several years.
Yeah.
It's just trying to keep people moving.
My son was a lifeguard at the Y the past 2 summers.
Oh, yeah?
He's off at college now, and he always worked the early shift. So he'd get there at 6:30, 6:45 and work till 9:30 or so. And that time of day is when the older folks are out there doing their laps, and not laps, they're usually walking back and forth. But he said every morning we've got it. He said it's full, like as full as it can be with the amount of lifeguards that they have.
Sure.
So people are using it.
Yeah, which is great. Another building block, social outlets is huge. It's changed a little bit. Some of it just changes in society, but getting involved with the church. You guys do a wonderful job.
Well, thank you.
I think it giving back to the community as well. But having that, I talk to a lot of people that's one of the things they bring up. I do this at my church. So having that is important for their overall well-being. Whether you're young or older.
And that does, those relationships, they provide a motivation and a stability too, and also some of those other resources that maybe you need a ride. Well, somebody in a church or an organization that you're a part of, maybe that's a friendship that you can trust and can give you a ride to those things, or some encouragement in your diet, or an exercise partner, so on and so forth. Yeah, there's such a need for social connection, I think. True. And we're happy to be a part of that. And there's so many organizations in Streator that are doing that same work, and we're happy to partner with them as well too, as often as we can. So
Access to healthy food, another building block.
Yeah.
Whether it's restaurants, whether it's grocery stores, having healthier options that you can pick from.
Yeah.
Farmers markets. Unfortunately, I haven't been to the farmers market in a while here, but it's things like that people can find.
Yeah. Well, fresh produce.
Fresh produce.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is, probably, I'm assuming you would say is probably a staple it should be a staple in your diet, is having fresh fruits and vegetables. And, I would assume that would be a big part of it.
Yeah.
But it can be a challenge sometimes to even find, what you're looking for at the grocery store sometimes,
Right.
So, if you have somebody growing it locally, that's always great.
Yeah.
So,
I think one other one I was thinking of was just that idea of access to reliable information, and people that take an interest or are engaged. We all have different talents, and so there was a program called Healthy Kids U that was out at the Y that was geared towards teaching kids how to make better choices.
Yeah.
Get them when they're young.
yeah.
The community talks. In fact, our diabetic educator is going to be giving a talk coming up. It's things like that at least people, if they utilize it, they can make. You get small changes or small, a little bit of information that maybe makes a difference down the road.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, very good. Any other building blocks you would say to kind of health and wellness as a community? And I love how you answer those from a community aspect. That's really what this podcast is all about. Is
Sure.
How do we continue to grow together as a community? And grow in our health and our wellness and all these other areas as well. So I love that you answer those kind of from that community perspective. That's really helpful, I think. But any other building blocks?
I was
pretty
even
much
thinking. Back to the exercise, there's so many different places that they're free. People go walk at St. Stephen's Cemetery, people St. Michael's Cemetery. Different places around town. We got the Hopalong Cassidy Trail. That there has been an increase in accessibility for people to be able to go out and do that. And if you want to go back a little further, I remember growing up that really exercise was something kids did. You didn't see the let's just say parents and above exercising, other than I had one friend whose dad used to ride to Ottawa and back every day after he got off work, which as a kid seemed, like he was driving Chicago.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But every day he was like one of the only ones I knew that really did exercise. And so you're seeing a lot more at all ages of people, trying to get involved or keep moving.
Yeah.
Which I think is great.
And I think as a parent, if you're active, your kids are much more likely to be active. I would say it's got to be a positive correlation. I would think, so just encouragement as a family to also keep moving and take walks together. We live out here, so we're right next to the cemetery, and so that's one of our favorite places to take a walk, is just to walk around there, do a couple laps, and after dinner or whatever. And we see people walking out there all the time. It's fantastic that there's a place that is there and peaceful and a welcoming place. So any other building blocks? I guess if not, we'll keep kind of moving forward and look at what your hopes are for the future. Just kind of what's your vision, I guess, as far as the future of Streator, your practice. What do you hope will begin to grow, and maybe some? And you covered a few of those things that you hope will improve, and that we still need to work on. Some things that that maybe aren't even on our radar as far as our health and our wellness goes as a community. So, any thoughts on that?
I would like to see a lot more bike paths.
Yeah.
Through, or just even, we're talking Main Street, that you just have bike lanes that people are able to use.
Yeah.
I think we've seen definitely a good start, but I think you would see more people utilizing that.
Sure.
Just because of the traffic issues and so on.
I mean, the kids just use the road as bike paths.
The whole road.
Yeah.
They do.
Incoming, oncoming, outgoing
Doesn't
traffic.
matter.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Transportation is a big one.
Yeah.
And all communities, I think, struggle with this to some extent, but, not having public transportation is an area that we can certainly improve. And I don't even know where to start with that. I mean, I do see a lot of, churches, for example, that do have, assist people that need it. And, but for us, or at least on my side, trying to get, we don't have access to everything in terms of healthcare, and so if somebody needs to see a particular specialist, sometimes it might be Bloomington, sometimes it might be Peoria or Morris or something, and we do have NCAT, which is very good, but they service LaSalle County, and so we're a little limited there, but trying to continue to find ways, and whether it's through the city or the city collaborating with OSF or however to try to improve some of this. I did find out we had an Uber service in Streator.
Oh, really? I don't even think I knew that. Yeah.
I didn't. But things like that, somebody can use an Uber to go to the store, go to the bank, go get out, meet
I know
people.
somebody that drives.
For Uber?
Yeah.
Here in Streator?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, very good. That's a good thing. That's very needed. And I think our hope is, you say, well, I don't even know where to start with some of this. Our hope is that as we have more of these conversations, I'll speak for us, I guess, but is that, maybe community leaders will hear some of these things. It's maybe an idea that you have sparks an idea in someone else, and maybe someone says, well, I know how to take care of that, and so that's part of our hope, I think, in these conversations that we're having. And I don't think it's just us. I think there's more leaders in the community that are trying to figure this thing out. Like, hey, let's make this a better place.
Sure.
There's so much motivation because there is so much compassion and so much love in this city. Mm-hmm. And it is a place where, we don't have all the pieces, but we're going to figure it out, just like we talked about earlier.
If anything this podcast has shown us is that there are so many people that care.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like everybody that we've, how many have we done?
24, 25, somewhere around there, yeah.
And every single person cares specifically for this town and the area. Yeah. But it's been humbling, really. Yeah. It's been awesome.
Well, we hope you don't mind me saying that we were talking before we started recording that, your heart is here. This is where you grew up, and we just see that over and over and over again, that people are committed to the goodness of this place. And so, I mean, there's certainly always room for improvement. We certainly, as an organization, we want to be part of that as well. I'm sure you want to be part of that with yourself and OSF as well. We've certainly seen that. Any other hopes for the future? Kind of what things we could work on, and again, not to put that as a negative, but here's some things that we can work on if we know what we can work on. And bike lanes, that's a great idea. I'd never even thought of that before. So
I think as I was kind of thinking about some of this, the problem that I think a lot of us have is we start to take maybe something relatively small, but it keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And pretty soon you get lost in it, and it's that sort of paralysis by analysis where you start to think, well, I don't even know where to start at this point. And it's trying to find, I guess, people that are motivated as well, and to try to find one thing specifically, and just say, well, what can I do to make this better?
Yeah.
And try to work from there. And pretty soon, if you have enough engagement, or if you get that sort of critical mass to where bigger changes start to happen.
Yeah.
One of them, for example, like volunteering. I mean, I think a lot of people would be very interested in volunteering. They just don't know where to start.
Yeah.
Or there's some hesitation because maybe they aren't sure they can do it. But it's and I've even seen situations where it's hard to find a place to volunteer. I've seen people who were like, yeah, I'll do it, and then they can't really find
Where do I go? Yeah. How do I start?
to help.
Sure.
And so that's my hope. I think Streator has really made some progress in a lot of different areas. It's just trying to continue to focus on that. It's hard. Life is busy, and it takes some special people sometimes to kind of be the idea that gets more people engaged. Because I can think of multiple projects over the years here where all you had to do was ask, and you would have a ton of people show up. They were more than willing to put in their time and effort and help out. So
I would say that's the majority of the projects that we've talked to, kind of the spearheads or whatever you want, the people that got those things going, Light Up Streator, for example, or the ramp builders. Really, there's, just endless examples of people that said, well, this all started when, a couple of us were sitting around talking about, well, wouldn't it be great if, and then all of a sudden we asked some people and they just all started showing up. That's how Streator Fest and Park, all those things, those just kind of
These huge things.
big things
Streator Fest
came out
massive.
of those types of efforts. And you just, never underestimate the power of people coming together and working together on something. I think that's the lesson in that if you can dream it, we're working on it together.
Ramp builders is huge.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a health and wellness connection.
Sure.
People getting in their house. Yeah.
And even just I'm not aware of any place else around that does it. And I know they get calls from, keeps
30
getting
miles
further
around.
and further away.
And the funny thing about that is, because we interviewed him for this, and we said, well, how do they get a hold of you? He goes, oh, everybody's got our number.
Everyone has our number. Yeah.
Like they
just call them. Like, how do they get hold? Well, they just call us.
Just word of mouth.
Yeah. They don't publicize. They don't. Yeah. It's just.
What a huge blessing for this community.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. What an amazing group of guys too.
I don't even think we got a number to put on the screen.
I don't think we did.
They just said, well, talk to the doctors. They'll tell you our
People only
numbers.
got our number. Yeah. They'll find us. Yeah. No, it's incredible. And again, that gives people autonomy. It gives them, agency to stay in their home. I think of my grandparents. They've been gone for years, but they were able to live out their lives in their home. And that, I think that helps. I think that's, if you're able to, and I think, just having that comfort of home and being able to be somewhere that's familiar and you love and, you have your history with. So,
yeah, it's about keeping your independence as long as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We've got so many other things that I could ask about as far as the future, but just kind of thinking about specifics, people getting being healthier. Let's focus in on kind of the OSF. You talked about some of those community talks, things like that. Maybe this is a good place to talk more about specific things people can get involved with. Maybe not necessarily just with your practice, but things that they can do through OSF. And you've mentioned a few already. Anything else that you would like to see people plug into, get involved with, to help them be healthier. Maybe things that you just haven't anything else that you haven't mentioned yet that we can get plugged into and help us be a healthier community.
Hey, a lot of it is support the stuff that is there.
Okay.
I think we all see kind of stops and starts of things that maybe don't go over well or aren't well attended or whatever, and it's hard to keep it up if you don't have the engagement. And,
That's a big part of it. Yeah.
Put your phone down.
Yeah.
I think I've found myself over the years that we need, well, maybe not need, but we use our phones for so many different things. But I think it's created just short attention spans. And, trying to just go for a walk or just, little steps. I try to encourage my patients. I said, you can start out slow. I had a patient, for example, that was wanting to start exercising, and they had an elliptical machine at home, and they came in and they were kind of depressed because they said, well, I can only go for 3 minutes. And I said, well, there's your baseline. I mean, that's your starting point. Next time they came back in, they were so excited they're almost up to 12 minutes. Yeah. And I said, well, keep going. I mean, you got to start somewhere, and then it's the consistency to just try to make it a good habit.
Sure.
I think we're all capable of doing it. And a lot of it is having somebody to do something with.
Yeah.
And it was one of the things I was thinking about that, if you know a neighbor, for example, that all it takes is a knock on the door and, hey, you want to go for a walk? Or, somebody that maybe doesn't have a whole lot of family in the area or something to try to engage them.
Yeah.
Did I have anything else off the top of my head?
Anything else that you wanted to share, I guess? Any other thoughts that you had as you were kind of thinking through the interview today that maybe we haven't talked about yet, or any other kind of big picture things about health, wellness, some of the roadblocks, some of the barriers that keep us from health? You talked a lot about really good ones. You talked about relationships, how wellness is more than just your physical health. It's your relationships, it's your mental well-being, it's your social not status, that's not the right word, but how you're handling things socially and emotionally, and those are all interconnected. But any other thoughts as far as those barriers, how we can remove them? Some of it's embarrassment, probably. Some people are maybe embarrassed about, like you said, the 3 minutes on a elliptical. Yeah. That's better than 0, Sure. So maybe some of it's just encouragement on how can we improve. We'll just do a little bit better every day, and I think that's a great message. But,
and I think I was just thinking that as you were talking, that I thought it's that don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah.
There's lots of people that are out there that are willing to help. And I was thinking of for example, if you're at a gym and you see somebody who is new, don't be afraid to say, hey, you need a little help with the machines, or I can show you something, or or at least show you how to turn it on, because sometimes you look at the treadmills and you can't figure out where to turn them on. So and I think that discourages a lot of people from going.
Sure.
That they're just not sure where to start.
Yeah.
And so having somebody that can help really makes a difference.
And if you are new, it's okay to ask.
Yeah.
If you don't know, if you are that new person, it's okay to ask that too.
We all started at some point.
Yeah. We did. We all did. Yeah. And so I guess any other kind of final thoughts, anything else that you wanted to share, anything else that we can let our listeners know as far as...
No, I think it's a lot about just trying to be engaged, try to look at some of the positives, that there have been a lot of changes in this town, good and bad, but I think you have that willingness to want to continue to do better.
Yeah.
And I think Streator's a great community for that. And that's what I think I've always been very proud of. I've known, people, for example, years ago, college, whatever, that come here that they really, I haven't had anybody leave going, oh, I don't like that place. They all love Streator. That some of it's just the openness of people, the friendliness, so, I think we need to capitalize on some of our strengths on that. I think it's also trying to maybe reach out a little bit, to neighbors, friends, whatever. I said, I know we're all busy. Life, kind of gets in the way of some of these things. The biggest struggle, I suppose, we probably have is from a financial standpoint on trying to get some of these. I mean, you can have all the ideas in the world, but, if you don't have the ability to make them happen, it's hard. But, that's all I've got.
Yeah, I hope, with that kind of last part, you hope that people will see the value of a small town like this, that like yourself, you are invested here, practicing here, you want what's best for your hometown. And so some of that is hopefully people from Streator seeing that need and pouring back into the city that raised them, kind of thing. Hopefully it's also people from the outside seeing the value of a small town and the goodness that it can bring into the world, and that it isn't, not everything happens in the big city. Nothing against the big city,
Sure.
But there's a large portion of our population that doesn't live in those big cities that finds their value in their hometown. And I think part of the challenge, maybe, and I don't know if you would agree with this or not, but is not only knowing our worth, finding our worth, and celebrating that, but also kind of showing the rest of the world, like, hey, we do have value, and we are worth your time, your attention, your money, your efforts.
True.
That we are worth pouring into, just like anywhere else. And maybe even more so. But we won't say that to disparage anybody else, but
Sure.
we love this town and we want to see it grow. So, well, Dr. Wargo, thank you so much for being here with us. Anything upcoming that you want to share? You probably don't have a lot of events on a calendar or anything like that to share, but if someone wanted to come and maybe even engage with you as a medical provider or anything like that, where do they go? Do they go to the OSF website? Is that kind of the place to send people to?
OSF, be the twin website, Facebook page.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information on there.
Okay.
Upcoming talks. We do have one new physician that just started here full-time, Dr. Camberos. We have Dr. Rahman, who's going to be coming in September, October.
Very good.
There's a lot of continued work that maybe a lot of people don't see. And that goes all over. I mean, it's not just where I'm at, but
Sure.
A lot of things going on under the surface that the goal is just progress.
Yeah.
And to try to bring more services to Streator.
Yeah.
Specifically in healthcare. But I think the openness of people to share too what works, what doesn't work, helps to try to fine tune some of this.
Very good.
I think we get a lot of feedback from surveys, and I think fortunately majority of it's all positive, but I think you learn, no matter what, you learn.
As long as you avoid Facebook, right?
Yeah.
Social media in general. Yeah.
Right. You learn a lot from it.
Yeah.
And I think you also see a lot of people who are very grateful, for it. So, yeah, I think we're going to keep moving on and keep bringing more into the Center for Health and
Very good. Well, that's good
try
to
to
hear.
improve on the community's wellness.
Yeah, that's good to hear, and we're here for it. And thank you so much for joining us and sharing
Yeah.
some of your expertise. And this has been enjoyable. I hope it has been for you too as well.
Yeah,
And
very much.
look forward to maybe having more conversations in the future when we've even improved even more and
Sure.
just some things to celebrate as well.
Yeah, thank
So,
you for having me.
You're very welcome. Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us on the We Are Here podcast. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.